Hello and hello. Welcome to our first LinkedIn Live of the year. In fact, we haven't done a LinkedIn Live for the Launch Strategist in a couple of months. So I'm really excited to be kicking off this new series of LinkedIn Lives. And it's called Leadership for the Next Era of Aerospace. And it's a series of conversations with leaders navigating this transition that we're in, where long established disciplines in aerospace meet new technologies. There's new markets between eVTOL and new space. There's great transition happening and things are changing. And so you have this intersection between old disciplines and a kind of new era that we're approaching. And so this series focuses on the leadership capability and commercial judgment that we need to navigate this new season in aerospace, what we need to navigate this complexity, to build credibility, and to create long-term resilience. Now, my very first guest is Malcolm Cox. Now, I think, Malcolm, we met maybe about 3 years ago here on this very platform, actually, in 2023, I think it was.
I guess you're right. Yeah, it has been a while, definitely.
It has been. And, you know, Malcolm's been someone that has really inspired me as someone that's been a veteran in the industry, someone that has longevity. I'm really inspired by people who have been able to last in business, and particularly in aerospace, such a complex and nuanced industry for such a long time. And Malcolm is one of those veterans. So a little bit about Malcolm. So Malcolm is a seasoned aviation leader who has spent his whole career operating in this intersection where performance, trust, and accountability really matter. We know that in aerospace, safety is the paramount thing. And we're going to hear a bit about Malcolm's experience and the work that he does in that area. But, you know, Malcolm has been in this environment for decades. He's led teams across demanding commercial and defense environments, helping organizations improve how they operate, make better decisions under pressure, and deliver consistency in complex, high-stakes settings. He's known for his people-first leadership and focus on continuous improvement. And Malcolm brings a practical, grounded perspective on what it really takes to lead well in aviation today. So welcome, Malcolm, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
It makes me listening to that. Yeah, I'll sign him up.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's an honor to have you, Malcolm. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey in aviation, where you started and where you are now?
When I started in the Royal Air Force in the military as an apprentice, one of 180 men and boys that started. And I finished my 3-year career in training there. I then went to join a fast jet squadron in the north of Scotland, looking after Jaguar aeroplanes. Just over a year after that, I was first promoted into a supervisory position as a corporal, and was involved with leading a team of 12 or 14 mechanics on the flight line, with 26 aeroplanes every morning being generated. From there, I went to Germany and I was again on fast jet squadron in Germany. And then while I was there, I decided my direction lay elsewhere, and I applied for and was successful in that application to go to university and become an engineering officer in the Royal Air Force. So I then spent 3 years at the Royal Military College of Science near Swindon, doing an Aerosystems engineering degree awarded by the Cranfield Institute of Technology. I use that because it dates me. It's now Cranfield University, but back then it was only an Institute of Technology. I then did 4 operational tours as a junior engineering officer in the Air Force, looking after things as diverse as C-130 operations during the first Gulf War in 1990, engine overhaul for Tornado, some in-house consultancy, and finally looking after the planning and resource allocation for the Air Force's most strategic fleets, the Airborne Early Warning and the Nimrod R1 reconnaissance aircraft. Following that, I decided, the Air Force said stay in. I decided no, needed a new challenge. And I then went to Marshall Aerospace in Cambridge, where I looked after their C-130 post-design services organization. It's like tech service. It's like tech services in an airline from there. And then I made that final leap into commercial aviation, moving down the road to Stansted, looking after easyJet and GoFly, and picking up my first of, I guess, a dozen Form 4 positions I've held over the last 25 years. And then from there, I had a brief visit to the Isle of Wight, and then I started Mackenzie Morgan, which is my own consultancy business, 21 years ago.
Wow.
And I've been doing that for, I've been running it for 21 years. We've been involved in startups, both aviation startups, maintenance startups. I've even helped organize and get a production approval. I've held within Mackenzie Morgan, we had our own standalone continuing airworthiness management approval, but commercial pressures meant I elected to surrender that because we couldn't cope with the commercial and the regulatory compliance aspects.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing about leadership and understanding where you are, is that you, particularly when it comes to regulatory compliance, is that sometimes you need to make a decision that says, I can't do this, I can't do both anymore. I need to do one or the other. But yeah, I've had a fantastic time. I've worked from the west coast of Canada to the Indian Ocean in one of the UAE Emirates on the look over the Indian Ocean. A lot of places in between. Visited most of Europe. Spent a long time in the Middle East with Middle Eastern cultures, working in Saudi, working in Bahrain, Abu Dhabi, and most recently in Jordan.
Wow.
So that is a very quick 2-minute sort of potted history of my career to date. It's only 48 and a bit years. I'm aiming for the half century.
And you're going to get there, Malcolm. And you know, that was one of, you're absolutely going to get there. And that was probably the main reason I wanted to speak to you, because of the breadth of your career. You've literally had, you know, a 50-year career, and you've worked all over the globe. So there's very few people that can match the breadth and the spectrum of your experience, which is why, as we're entering kind of this next phase, what I feel is the next phase in the aerospace sector, you're someone that is best placed, because you're not someone that has just kind of rocked up, as it were, and is now entering the sector now that it's become, I guess, more popular and more commercial and more mainstream. You've seen the full breadth, which is why your insights are so valuable. And it's interesting, when I was listening to what you were saying, I didn't know that you started, like, some of your education was at Cranfield. I didn't know that Cranfield was just a technical institution before. What's interesting about that is that's how I first got into aviation and aerospace in 2022. I actually, now it's yes, it's still known for aerospace, very much so, but it's also known for leadership and management. And so I did a scale-up program in leadership and management at Cranfield University in 2022. And that's where I first started to get really excited about the prospect and the season that we're in aviation and aerospace. So I didn't know we had that in common. That's really interesting. So now that we're at this juncture, and I keep saying this juncture, but can you speak to me about, you know, where we are in aerospace, the changes that we're seeing from new space to eVTOL and advanced air mobility and, mini satellites and all of that good stuff? Can you tell me what's different about the season that we find ourselves in, and how has it changed for those that aren't aware and haven't been in the sector? And may not be completely a bit aware of what we're talking about. Can you talk us through that?
The there's been changes have been driven by technology, changes have been driven by regulatory changes, and in many respects loosening of the regulatory reins. 25 years ago, you didn't have low-cost carriers. You didn't have easyJet, you didn't have Ryanair. If you wanted to fly somewhere, you either paid for a scheduled ticket with British Airways or some other recognized mainstream carrier, or you went on a package holiday. You went down to your travel agents and you picked up the brochures. You spent days and days going through them and saying, that's the holiday I want, and the flight was part of it. Deregulation of airspace above our heads came in, and the deregulation of airline ownership came in. You didn't need to have a return ticket. You could fly. You can now fly out with one airline and fly back on a completely different one to a completely different destination. You couldn't do that. So there's that regulatory change that's liberated flying. It's encouraged people, and everybody has their opinion of Mr. O'Leary over in Dublin, but he has done a huge amount to change the way people fly and the way people view air transport. Stelios and easyJet probably equally as divisive a character to people outside of the industry, did the very same with easyJet. Where did it come from? They went out and bought GoFly from British Airways. One night, I finished work on one day, and I was looking after two roughly similar sized airlines. I come in the next day to the news that I was looking after one airline with twice the size it was at 5 o'clock the night before, when the news broke that easyJet had bought GoFly. We didn't even know it, and we were supporting both airlines. So it's there. So that's the regulatory changes of happening. Technology, it's moved on. The use of composites, the use of lightweight materials. So flying again now is more cost effective. I'm not going to say cheaper. It's going to be more cost effective for the passenger, because costs are going down. Fuel consumption, developments in engines, again allowing greater range for less fuel. So those are driving that. And now we come to, as you say, UAVs and urban mobility. I have grave doubts that will be successful. I don't see it as being the panacea, as many of the proponents have said that it's the panacea to urban travel chaos. It is going to be the playthings and the toys of high net worth individuals. We're never going to see a sub $2 per kilometer Uber rate, in my opinion. But again, there needs to be a huge change in the way that the regulators view them, to allow images of the Jetsons, a cartoon when I was a kid.
I remember it.
So can I see that over the centre of London? No, I can't, to be honest. Can I see it over centre of Norfolk, where I'm sitting in the wind and rain today? Yeah, maybe. It would, because there's unrestricted airspace. It's an urban environment. It's a rural environment. I just cannot see it over somewhere like London. I look after London's air ambulances, their post holder for airworthiness, and I go into the helipad on top of the Royal London Hospital in Whitechapel, 300 feet above ground level, and it astounds me just to walk around that helipad and to see the landscape that these two helicopters operate in, and these pilots put their aircraft down in. They are hundreds of thousands of hours experienced pilots, and they're finding it difficult. How is somebody on an iPad in front of them that's never flown going to take some of these toys into that environment? I personally can't see it. I'd love to be maybe proved wrong, but I'll just be factual. I look at the news. all of these disruptor companies, without exception, are scrabbling around for investor money. 𝗟𝗲𝗱𝗱𝗃 have just cut back on their workforce and their development program and extended the timeline because of financial constraints. That, to me, was probably one of the more viable solutions with the hydrogen fuel cell technology, and they're cutting back. So it's a period of change. It's a period of turbulence, and it requires careful navigation, and it requires leadership to get through it. There's people, the environmental concerns. We need to recognize all of those. And we need to have leaders that can recognize where the headwinds are coming from and deal with them.
Yeah. I think it's great that you've provided so much context, Malcolm, and I think all of those points are valid. And before we go into the leadership segment of this talk, which is, I guess, the main crux of what we're talking about, a couple of things. A few minutes back, you mentioned that, and correct me if I'm relaying this wrong, you mentioned something about companies having to choose between the commercial element and the regulatory element, and them having to pick a side, something to that effect. Can you just reiterate that point for me, please?
Yeah, regulation is there to ensure our safety. Regulation is there to ensure the operations pass without hitches and incident. Regulation has in many areas deregulated, but it still is there. It still is there as a boundary for people, a barrier, so that you don't go below it, to ensure safety and to ensure that you and I, when we get on our Ryanair flight to Dublin for a long weekend, are perfectly safe. Getting on our transatlantic are perfectly safe, and we can guarantee that we'll arrive there at the other end. So there is always this challenge of businesses to balance how do we deliver the regulatory compliance we need to deliver. And some businesses find that a challenge. Some businesses have issues with it and fall foul of the regulator. I've been lucky enough, lucky enough in my career to pick up work to go and help those organizations get back on the right side of the regulation, and then to bring them back into the right operating environment. So it is compliance and regulatory compliance and safety compliance is not given, and it's not cheap. It's not easy to achieve. And if you're a business under pressure financially, there's certain things that go out the window quite early on. Training gets cut back. Actually, training is one of the barriers to maintain safety and compliance, because we need competent staff. So there's a whole mix that goes on there to deal with, and it's all about priorities. It's about balancing limited resource against priorities.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and it leads nicely into what I want us to talk about regarding the fact that I think in the landscape that we're in, where it is more competitive, where the landscape is changing, I don't think companies in aerospace that want to have longevity can afford to really lay aside that leadership piece and that commercial strategy piece. I don't think they can afford to. I think that regulation and safety 100% has to be paramount. But I also think that companies need to get better of balancing this element. I think for so long, as someone that is newer to the industry now, having been in the sector for about 3 years, it seems like sometimes I feel like that leadership and commercial strategy piece is kind of like a nice to have, and it's not. There's limited understanding about how crucial it is, even though we see tons of mergers and acquisitions, even though we see companies not fulfilling their full potential because of that lack of commercial capability and leadership capability. You have people that are brilliant in terms of engineering and that are seasoned, but actually don't have those very fundamental leadership skills that you need to grow and scale and have longevity. So yeah, can you speak to that, Malcolm?
Yeah, I completely. People assume because you're good technically, you can take on that role. That's not always entirely true, and people have skill sets, people have strengths which they want to play to, and they have weaknesses that they want to hide. And leadership is not something that everybody finds comfortable. They are happier behind a desk, they are happier behind a screen working out the technical issues. They are happier behind a screen dealing with the financial challenges of a business. But actually getting up in front of a hangar full of people and speaking to 200, 300 people, they cannot do. Getting up in front of investors and outlining a strategic vision for an organization, they can't do. So that's that's leadership in its top level sense. But again, what you can have those leaders if they don't have those willing lieutenants, if they don't have those willing supervisors and willing supervisors at the next level or 2 levels and 3 levels down. You can have the best vision, you can have the best strategy, but if you haven't got the enablers that can take it and turn it into something that 25 people on a C check on a 737 can deliver, it doesn't matter how good your strategy is, how good your leadership is, if you haven't got that supervisor, that inspector who's leading that group, that small group of people, but he only got that job, she only got that job because they were excellent licensed engineers. It will fail. So it's not an either or question in terms of leadership, and it's not a strategic versus tactical, if you like. Maybe that's my military background coming out.
No, it makes
but you
perfect
need leadership needs to encompass from the CEO all the way down to the first line supervisor, and the first line supervisor needs the CEO to provide the direction and the general pathway forward. The CEO needs that first line supervisor to deliver that pathway and to get the team of half a dozen, his team, our team of half a dozen people, to march in beat with what they wanted to achieve. So we need, having done some training and having done some consultancy work around, there is a disconnect. We're just making, particularly at the lower level, which is where my concern is, because if we haven't got those, the fundamental basics of safety and compliance are stretched. If we haven't got those fundamental basic supervisory skills in place, we're building a longer term problem, because they will just move on up through to be plant manager, facility manager, whatever. And if we haven't got those fundamental skills, they won't be able to make those steps forward safely in a compliant manner for the organization. Sorry, I paint a black picture.
No, but I think it's important for us to be really honest, and later on in the conversation we're going to look at some solutions and some suggestions. But you know, what I've seen is this: I've spent 20 years in business leadership, strategy development and implementation, and what surprised me coming into the sector is that you have this dichotomy. You have some of the brightest minds in the world in this sector, brilliant engineering minds, but yet when it comes to leadership, when it comes to business strategy, implementation, sustainable business growth, and leadership capability, you know, you have an industry that is way light years ahead technically compared to a lot of industries, but way behind what is normal in a lot of sectors. And I see that having a background that is quite vast in terms of the sectors that I've been in, and that there's a friction there, and which actually has formed the center of my mission and vision for the launch strategist, because it's such a dichotomy. And I think it's also not just a dichotomy, but it's also a blind spot. You have almost a generation of leaders that don't realize that this is such a huge gap. And I think one of the biggest strengths, and that in itself is testament to the immaturity, dare I say, I hope that doesn't sound offensive, of leadership, generally speaking, because one of the biggest and most important traits of a leader is that self-awareness and that ability to have a bird's eye view and say, actually, this is where we're weak, this is where we're strong, this is where the gaps are, and be able to build a team to fill those gaps. But if the leaders themselves do not see that gap, where do you go from there? Which is why it's so important that veterans like yourself say these things and are providing support in this area, because it's one thing for me coming out from outside the sector saying, hold on, guys, you've got this big blind spot that is hampering your growth. That sounds very different coming from someone like me than it does from someone like you who spent 50 years in the industry. So yeah, what do we do about it?
Well, yeah, I mean, good question. What do we do about it? We need to, well, I think the first bit is, and it goes back to the individual, is not only they need to understand themselves, they need to recognize in their own personality what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and they need to work on that. As I said, you know, my business, we had an approval. We made the decision that we couldn't do everything, and provide the level of service, the level of standards that we wanted to provide, and be compliant. So we made a decision. So it's about, so I think start off is the individuals need to know themselves. And I don't think enough of us do know ourselves. Not enough of us have thought about what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, how do I correct it, where do I need to work. So that's there. And once you have an understanding from that, then you can start to look at your organization. But I'm happy to take people's view from outside of my industry. I'm not so driven. I'm not so, I don't have an ego that says I've been in this industry for 50 years, so I know everything. I'll look at other solutions. I'll look at other opportunities. I'm quite happy to, what was it? At school, it's copying. At university, it's plagiarism. If you do it at work, it's precedents. I'm quite happy to look at precedents from other industries, to bring that in. I'm not, as I say, I'm not so fanatical that my industry is the best. And I think there's too many people have that viewpoint that they don't know themselves, and they don't see that there are shortfalls in our industry. I think we only have to look at a major manufacturer of large commercial aeroplanes to see that. You know, that Netflix documentary was particularly harrowing if somebody from within the industry to sit there and watch, to see what was happening in the name of that prestige. So I think, yes, we need to look at ourselves first and foremost. We need to then be able to recognize that we have to have thoughts and viewpoints from potentially outside of our industry, because other people are doing things better. Not to the, which is where I think part of the issue with the urban mobility comes from, is you get the Silicon Valley disruptors coming in,
Yeah.
the Elon Musks and the like coming into the industry. That's a completely deregulated, completely uncontrolled Wild West, and they're trying to import the same approach to business, the same approach to work into it. But you can't, because there's 500 people's lives at stake in a 380 at 38,000 feet. So you can't use those, but we need something between the two. And that's probably where we're not good. We still haven't got over that we do need these disruptors. We do need this. Why have we? There's a question when I go into organizations, and why do you do that? We've always done it that way. That's guaranteed to set my teeth on edge, and to start asking more questions, more difficult. We do need people to do that. But we also need to say, actually, no, we can't do it anymore. We can't go any further because people's lives, because of safety, because of compliance. But know that we should question things more.
Yeah. I think that's such a great point to land on before we talk about our respective work and how we support companies. It is, like you say, it's not that wild west approach. I think, I think it's so important to respect the history of a sector, respect what's there and why it's there while progressing forward. And I think it is this kind of medium that we haven't quite found yet in the sector, where yes, we need to be progressive, we need to be forward thinking, we need to embrace new technology, but there's a reason why there's a regulatory framework that is, and we can't run ahead of that. But equally, we can't allow it to stop us moving forward. And so, were you going to say something, Malcolm?
No, I was just going to say, I agree. We do have to respect the history, but it doesn't mean, and I keep saying to people when I'm on contract, is that we shouldn't write anything in a tablet of stone. It should be written on paper, and we should be big enough to accept that it might need to change. I'm quite happy to go through in an organization, and if it takes 4 amendments to get the document right, then it takes 4 amendments to get it right. And working for the business, there's too many people either just look at it, oh no, that was the way it was written, it has to be on stone, it has to be in stone, it's on the shelf. And there's been too many accidents because of that. And we just need to have an approach that says, let's get something down in paper, let's have a look at it, let's see how it works. Okay, that's not working well. Why do we need to change it? Okay, we'll change it there. We need to have we need a challenging outlook on life, but we need to also know where we can't challenge there. We need to stop. That's as far as we can go. Okay, we need to change direction then. If we want to move forward, we can't move forward in that direction, but we'll change direction, and that's not what we're good at. It's not. There's too many fixed ideas. There's too many tablets of stone. I'm still trying to knock a few over.
100%. And I think that's why it's so important, particularly in aerospace and aviation, that they do embrace outside voices, because sometimes the culture is so entrenched that they can't see the wood through the trees. And sometimes you just need someone to come in that understands the sector, understands the nuances of your business, but has a fresh viewpoint to kind of inject something new without completely disrupting what you have, but just allowing, just bringing you into a new place, whilst honoring what you've been. And I think it does take external consultants like yourself, like myself, not to come and change everything in an organization, but just to ask some questions like, have you looked at this, or have you thought about this, just to bring something new and fresh, because sometimes you're so close to something that you actually can't see what's right in front of you or what's blocking you. And so you do need that. So Malcolm, talk to me about Mackenzie remind me the name.
Morgan.
Mackenzie Morgan, sorry, it skipped my mind just then. Talk to us about Mackenzie Morgan and your work.
We do anything that people want, really, and that's just which is fine. But the focus is on taking an organization to start up in terms of a regulatory compliance, get their documentation right, get their organizational structure right, work with them if they've been challenged by the authority.
Yeah.
Because I don't come from a quality assurance or a compliance background, even though I worked in it. I come from a practical operational management, operational roles all my career. I will look at it, how do I make it work for me? I need to be efficient, I need to be effective.
Yeah.
And I don't need to be, I need to be compliant, but I don't need to have that blue ribboned compliance management system. I need a system that keeps me on the right side of the tracks and is as cost effective and as lean as possible for the organization. There's no point building something that's unaffordable for an organization. There's no point building processes that are just too expensive to deliver. We need to build something that the business can use to their advantage. So that's what we get involved in, helping them. I've fulfilled contract interim positions as post holder and Form 4 holder in old parlance before the regulations changed. So I can sit there and go in as an interim senior manager or director or whatever you want to call it, and help them from the inside and work with the team to develop it and to build the systems that actually reflect what they need. It's not to go in with preconceived ideas. It's not to go in with flag carrier A's mentality. When I'm going into a low-cost carrier or a regional airline, I go into that organization with the viewpoint of what they need to have to be compliant and successful. Not, well, it worked in this airline, so it's going to work here. It doesn't. And it comes back to that understanding of self. It comes back to that understanding of your own abilities. Dare I say it, ego comes into it in some of these people that come in. It worked in this airline, it'll work here. Actually, it won't. And you need to understand where you are on any particular day, on any particular project, to be able to and look at it and then say, right, what do they actually need? They don't need something this big. They just need something this big to fill that gap. And that's what we need to build for them, and that's what we do. And that's how I go about it. I look at the goal, I look at the organization, and I look at where the gaps are, and I try and work out how I can fill them for them with the minimum cost to that organization. Because if it's too expensive, they won't take it. If it's too expensive, they won't be here in 5 years' time.
Yeah. And I think what's unique about Mackenzie Morgan is that you work right through from what do you call it, the compliance and regulatory part, and you've been in MRO for decades, haven't you? You've been in, for those that don't know what MRO is, can you just give most people that are watching this
maintenance, repair and overhaul facility. So that's where they take the aircraft. It's like when you take your car in for its annual service, only is a bit more complicated for an airplane, but it's exactly the same process. We take panels off, we inspect it, we test it, we change parts, we put it all back together, we test it again, and then we send it back out. So you can do it for a whole aeroplane, you can do it for an engine, or you can do it for components. And I've worked in all three sectors. I've been an airline rep, where I've gone in there and represented the airline in a major MRO facility. And I am agreeing the work that's going to be done. I'm agreeing the course of action. The maintenance company's facility is going to say, do this. We don't need to do that. We just need to do this. They don't get 200 man hours of work, and we don't have the aircraft delayed for 3 weeks. So it's an understanding of what needs to be done, what can be done, and then work it through in there. But that is then negotiation, discussion, and persuasion between the maintenance company and the airline. So, because one doesn't want to spend money and the other one wants to make money. It's
Always.
but somewhere you have to meet. So that's what we do. But as you say, I first picked up a spanner in October 1980. I know that's hard to believe, but yeah, October 1980, I first picked up a toolkit to go and work on an aeroplane, and I've been in that environment ever since, having finished my apprenticeship. So I can look at an aeroplane in pieces and say, well, that's going to be another 2 weeks, so that's 10 days.
Wow.
The planning organization will tell me something different, but I can look at it and go, number of people, yeah, that'll be 10 to 14 days, or that'll be 5. You can do that in 5 days. You can do that in 7 days.
Incredible.
It's eyes. It's just knowing what people can do. But that's how we go about it.
And now you're in leadership training. Is that correct, Malcolm?
Yeah, we're working our syllabus. We're working to, and it's not leadership at the top end of the scale. This is taking team lead. This is taking people who are going to become team leaders for the first time. This is taking people who are going to be lead auditors for this first time. It's taking them basic skills like how to delegate, how to prioritize, how to manage your time and your team's time. The military was very good at it. When people got promoted, they went away for 10 days or longer, depending on which ranks they were going between. But a lot of that was military education. I want to strip all of this. There's no need to send somebody working at Stansted to go on to the training areas and give them a rifle. But we need some of the skills that they picked, they would have got in terms of communication, in terms of being able to stand up and actually make a presentation, even to half a dozen people. Some people just cannot do it. If you're a lead auditor and you're going into an opening meeting, you need to present some presence to the team that you're auditing, to show that you actually know what you're doing, to give confidence to them that actually it will be, you'll be fair and straight with them. So it's at that end of the, start at the bottom end and work up with it. I can't compete with Cranfield and their MBA courses. I can't compete with the big universities that are running that strategic, that real top level leadership. But what I can do is take 50 years of experience of running teams, of being with people, and try and put that into 1 or 2 day package that we can deliver. And that's the aim, is we want to build up from the bottom, so those people they'll get this package that will make them feel better about themselves, that will make the organization look at them, that's been an improvement, and then we can just develop it, and maybe over time we would introduce more packages, so when they go from being a supervisor to the first managerial level, we would do something else in that time as well. But simple single steps to start with. Look at where's the challenges. It's at the bottom. It's that, for me, going out into organizations, working with airlines, working with MROs, and working with the teams on the aeroplanes. It's that person doesn't understand how to delegate. That person doesn't understand how to communicate. They don't know how to manage their time. They don't know how to prioritize and make those decisions that they need to make. So let's focus on that. That's kind of where I want to start, because I think that's where we need to start building.
Absolutely.
And I think I said on one of your earlier, either the back end of last year or the beginning of this year, yin and yang. Leadership is very much, you need the strategic, but the strategic, as I said right at the beginning, won't work if we haven't got the tactical supervision and delivery mechanisms right. There's no point wasting money on one end or the other end. We need to think about both.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if you are an MRO or an aerospace leader and you're listening to Malcolm and you're thinking, actually, I think we can be more efficient on the MRO side of things. I think there's some practical regulatory efficiencies that we need, but you don't know how to go about that. Please get in touch with Malcolm on here on LinkedIn, or I'm sure Malcolm will give his details. And also, if you're looking at your team and you're thinking, actually, they're great from an engineering perspective, but from a leadership and communication perspective and being able to move the needle and drive change, they're not quite there, and you feel like you have this gap in the middle in capability, then please do get in contact with Malcolm, because there'll be very few people that have his breadth of experience from both a technology perspective and a leadership perspective, having been in the sector for 50 years. So Malcolm, how can listeners get in touch with you?
They can get hold of me through LinkedIn, and it's malcolm.cox@mckenzie-morgan.com, and they can get me through that, and I'll be more than happy to sit down and have a discussion with them and work out where we need to go, and where we can help them get to where they want to be.
Fantastic, Malcolm. Thank you. Well, I didn't actually introduce myself. For those of you watching who don't know who I am, I'm Katrina Douglas, founder of The Launch Strategist. And like we mentioned earlier in the conversation, I've been in the aerospace sector for about 3 years, but been in leadership and strategy development and implementation for the last 20 plus years. And why I'm so passionate about the sector is because it's such an incredible sector. Some of the smartest people I've ever met. The trajectory of the industry is incredible, but there is this kind of commercial capability and leadership gap that we at The Launch Strategist aim to fill. So slightly different to Malcolm, we do work with top level leadership on the vision and strategy piece, but we also work with implementation. We are not like typical consultants in that we give you a strategy and leave. No, we actually stay in the business and help you implement and give you that kind of commercial and business expertise that we've gained over the last 20 odd years, and help you to use it to scale and grow your business and give you longevity on that business piece. So we develop and implement commercial strategy for aerospace organizations that want to strengthen their impact, accelerate their growth, and shape the future of the sector. It's one thing being in the sector saying, you are a company that has been in aerospace for 30 or 50 years as a company, and many aerospace companies do say that, and kudos to them. But do you have what it takes to last in the sector for the next 30, 50 years? Because if you do want that longevity, there's some things that you have done that you'll need to change. And both Malcolm and I lead businesses that support you with that change. So in terms of that first step for us, if you're listening and you're thinking, actually, I do want to learn a little bit more about that kind of vision, strategic, commercial capability piece, then do get in touch. Our first touch point is what we call a flight path strategy session. And I realized that actually, you may want a taste of what we do before you invest fully. And so this is essentially a 90-minute strategy session to give you a taste of how we work and what we do. And in that, we solve one high-value problem. You can't solve a lot of things in 90 minutes, but it might be that, actually, we used to sell in this way, but it's not working. This business development strategy used to work, but it's not working. There seems to be a bottleneck in our sales process, or we've been around for 50 years, but people still don't know who we are. And in that 90 seconds, you pick a problem, and we've got a list of them when you sign up, and we work through that problem. And I find that when you actually work with someone, even for a small time, you get a feel for what they do. And it also helps you identify bigger issues and prioritize actions. And so that's what we do, 90 minutes to give you a taste of how we work and what we do. There's absolutely no commitment After that call, we give you an overview of our recommendations, and you can either continue to work with us or not, as the case may be. But it gives you a feel for who we are, what we do, and how we do it. Yes, and I am grateful to have people like Malcolm in my network. And so it might be after we do that 90-minute strategy session, I might say, actually, yes, I think you should continue to work with us. But I might actually say, no, I think Malcolm is the better person for you for where you are. Actually, the bottleneck is that middle management and leadership. Perhaps there's some technical issues that you need to solve before you come to us. And that is the beauty of building a network. So yes, if we are the best company to support you in terms of that commercial capability, 100% will be happy to work with you. But what we also do is we're not afraid to recommend you to the people in our network that we believe will be valuable to you. So yes, if you have any questions, do feel free to reach out, message here on LinkedIn, or you can email me at katrina@thelaunchstrategist.com. So Malcolm, is there anything that you want to leave viewers with? Any last thoughts?
Help is out there.
Yes.
Help is out there. There are resources, there are organizations, there are people that can help, because we can't solve everything ourselves.
Absolutely.
And we need to take in that outside look, because quite often we get tunnel vision, and as Katrina said, we can't see the wood for the trees. So take the opportunity and get something, and then see where it all takes us. So help is there.
Absolutely. So stay connected to us both. I'm assuming you're connected to us on LinkedIn if you're watching this, but if not, please do connect with us both here on LinkedIn. Malcolm Cox on LinkedIn, Katrina Douglas on LinkedIn. And if either of us can help you, please do not hesitate to reach out. We're quite friendly people. We're open to a friendly conversation. And so, yeah, don't hesitate to reach out. Malcolm, thank you so much for your time. It's great that we met nearly 3 years ago, and we're still talking, and that's what business is about, building relationships and longevity. So thank you for your time. We've had this planned for a while, so it's great to have finally
it has
done it. And as ever, we'll stay in touch. And thank you for your time. It's been much appreciated, and I'm sure
I've enjoyed it. It's been good, and I certainly have enjoyed it. So thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Malcolm. Thanks everyone that is watching. Those of you that have watched live or will be catching the replay, this will be a regular segment on the Launch Strategist, and I'll be having guests probably once a month to speak about how to navigate this new era of leadership in aerospace. Thanks for watching, and speak soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.